Every year, Kings Island hires hundreds of people to help operate the season. Inherently, some of them are going to end up famous. Hello, everybody. Alongside Don Helbig, I'm Ryan Sir, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics, the podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
Yes. So, we have a short list of celebrities who have worked at Kings Island. The most famous one is actually on a podcast with me, I would say, but we'll get to that later. Don, what's the first name that comes to mind when you talk about celebrities who worked at Kings Island?
One of the people that comes to mind is Woody Harrelson. You might remember him from the TV show Cheers. He was in that series. The actor and two-time Academy Award nominee. He was a wood carver at Kings Island in the Rivertown area of the park during his high school years. He is a 1979 graduate of Lebanon High School, and he worked at the park around that time.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to say I've got the utmost respect for Woody Harrelson, and I'm too young to be a Cheers aficionado, really. But the role of Coach was so beloved on that show, and he stepped in and arguably outshined him. I think that shows what a great actor he is.
Yeah, very underrated actor.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so he worked as a woodcarver in Rivertown. I remember when that was the rumor, but no one seemed to be sure if it was actually true. But it is. He was a woodcarver at Rivertown, and
from what I understand, too, when he worked there, late 70s, 1980 range, when he was still in high school, is that he kind of kept, quiet. A lot of people were surprised he went in to acting because he just kind of came in, did his job, and went home.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know that are there was a guy that was like a product rep when I worked at Best Buy that came in that had the worst stutter, and you had a terrible time understanding him. But he also moonlighted as a stand-up comedian, and when he was on stage, he did not have a stutter. So I think that when people are in performance mode, sometimes they're just different people.
Yeah, the light goes on, and you're right. You're in a different mode.
Cool. All right. Next up.
Yeah, Nick Lachey.
Ever heard of this guy?
A lot of people have heard of Nick Lachey, one of the most famous, Cincinnatians in the past, 25, 30 years. In the band 98 Degrees, grew up in town, was a performer at Kings Island in a barbershop quartet at the park. You might remember when they had, that type of entertainment roaming around the midways during the summer months.
Yeah, I remember them having stuff like that. And I mean, obviously, I don't remember Nick Lachey, and if I ever encountered him, I wouldn't have known who he was anyway. But 98 Degrees, I remember when they were a big hit back in the late 90s. Very, very cool.
Yeah, he came to the park a couple years ago with his family, had a great time, loved the Beast, but really enjoyed being back at Kings Island. So, yeah, it's good to see that a lot of them, they remember where they came from and go back and, kind of revisit the park as a guest.
Yeah, and then he owned Lachey's Bar, which is now closed, but he stuck close to the hometown, so good on him. Thanks, Nick.
And then you've got Justin Jeffrey. He was also in that 98 Degrees band, co-member with Nick Lachey, part of that quartet that roamed around the park at Kings Island, and he and Nick, that's where they met, at Kings Island. They both also went to the School for Creative and Performing Arts in Cincinnati.
Yeah, SCPA. So, yeah, it's kind of funny because I know of other people, and I'm not going to name drop, that were performers at Kings Island and ended up creating bands together. So that's kind of cool. But, yeah, it was so did Justin Jeffrey ever come back to Kings Island, to your knowledge? So I remember always hearing about
not Lachey. That I ran across, I'm sure he has, but not that I came across. But there was you would find their band, not the band, but the quartet in the Rivertown kind of area when they had Swan Lake and they had the little bridge that kind of went over Swan. They would be on the bridge performing over there.
Yeah, cool. All right, top of the list now. We've got the biggest celebrity that's ever worked at Kings Island, and Carmen Electra. on this next slide. So for audio listeners, there's a picture of Dawn with Carmen Electra. But yeah, Carmen Electra, protege of Prince of all people.
Yeah, dancer at the park in 1990 in a show called It's Magic. She did not stay very long in the show. She was maybe in it for 4 or 5 weeks of that season. Prince was performing at Timberwolf and needed some backup dancers, and they took some of the cast members from some of the shows. She was one of them, and he asked her, "Hey, would you like to go on tour and travel with me?" He liked the way that she danced and that. And next day, she was gone, off with Prince, and that's kind of how her career kind of got launched. But yeah, she was a dancer in the show. It's Magic. I remember her being in that show. Got to actually, see her out in the park sometimes riding rides. She came back to be inducted into the Kings Island Hall of Fame, one of the first inductees, and kind of made a cameo. And they had the 2008 show. They had an 80s show, so she kind of appeared in that and did kind of a Q&A afterward with the cast. But yeah, so she gets inducted into the Kings Island Hall of Fame. Probably had the shortest run of anybody that worked at Kings Island to be inducted into the Kings Island Hall of Fame. But yeah, she's still out there doing different things. You see her appearing every now and then on some different talk shows and that. She was in Baywatch for a while.
Yeah. See, my problem with that is that Pete Rose bets on baseball, gets a lifetime ban, can't go in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Carmen Electra breaches her contract. She gets to go in. I don't see where the logic is.
Yeah, but like I said, very short run at the park, but in the Kings Island Hall of Fame. Married to at one time to Dennis Rodman. And that was kind of a circus, and she got a lot of attention during that run. But she's done well for herself. So you got to give her credit.
Did Dennis Rodman ever work at Kings Island? Because that would be the best news story ever.
No,
but it was just this quiet kid that served pizza at La Rosa's.
Yeah, no Dennis Rodman. What do we got next?
The next, Susan Perkins,
1978 Miss America. She worked at the park as a live show performer. She was from Middletown, Ohio. I do not remember her being in a show. It was before I really got into all of, being a regular at Kings Island more than that one time a year visit. I do know I watched all of the shows in 1978. My mom would make me watch the shows with her. She said, if you're going to be off roaming around riding rides all day, you're going to do what I want to do too. So my mom was my introduction to the Kings Island show. So I'm sure I saw her in 1978, but don't recall her being in the shows.
Thanks, Mom.
That's right.
All right. Yeah. Miss America. So that's a pretty big accomplishment. All right. Next, Danica Patrick.
Yeah, Dan Patrick.
Dan Patrick.
Dan Patrick, a TV radio sports host. He was on ESPN for a very long time. He was an actor on the train, KI Miami Valley Railroad in 1972, attended Mason High School, and every now and then on his show, which is now a national show on radio, he will reference Kings Island. Sometimes he'll bring up working on the train. About a year or so ago, I remember someone asked him about, what it was, if he remembered working at Kings Island. He said, yeah, of course, I was on the train. It's probably gone now. And no, it's still there. So he was a little puzzled by that, but he's out, I believe, in Los Angeles now. But probably one of the most successful people that ever worked at Kings Island. He had some cameos in some movies. So I really like listening to Dan on the radio, enjoyed him on ESPN. And every time I ride the train, you kind of think about the people that maybe worked that, and, Dan Patrick comes to mind.
Yeah, very successful. Now, to clarify, Danica Patrick did not work for the park, but I can't see the name Dan Patrick without thinking of Danica Patrick, but completely different people from what I understand. Okay, next up.
Lewis Johnson, one of my favorite people. I got to know Lou pretty well when he worked at the park as a rides associate, began on the Beast, was over at the Racer, became a ride supervisor, then an area supervisor. He was at Kings Island for a number of years, a long run there, 1981 to 1987, graduated from the University of Cincinnati, a track star at the University of Cincinnati. He went on to work in the news media, a very successful career. You would see him covering the Olympics. So he's had a phenomenal career. And he comes back to the park every now and then, and another member of the Kings Island Hall of Fame, but just one of the best people that I met and got to know during my years at Kings Island as a guest, riding the Racer and the Beast. I mean, just a phenomenal guy.
And it all started with being a ride supervisor on the Beast and Racer. But it seems like Kings Island turns out a lot of sports reporters.
Yeah,
that's what I'm seeing from the list, which is, it's odd because I don't know if that's coincidental or if there's something about the area that churns them out, or if there's something about people that would work at Kings Island would also make good sports reporters.
Yeah, he was a sideline reporter too, covering NBA games for a long time. But like I said, just a great guy, and he is also someone that is very quick to credit Kings Island for the success he had in his career, particularly one individual, Don Miller, who was in park operations. And Lou says that without Don and the leadership and everything, and just what he learned at Kings Island, he doesn't go on to do what he did. So he's very quick to credit the park for his success.
Absolutely. Moving right along.
We have Curtis Cregan. He's a Broadway actor. His first performing job was an MC for the Nickelodeon show at the park. He attended the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. So another name that you might not have heard of him, but certainly Broadway fans know who he is.
I mean, just making it onto the Broadway stage is impressive. It's like, and I'm not an expert in this, so I could be entirely wrong, but my understanding is that, there's a lot of talented people, especially a lot of like very refined, educated people that study musical theater, music, and performance vocals and dance and so on. And then you filter through some of those, and some of them get to go on like the national tour for Wicked or Lion King or whatever. And then some of those people get to go to Broadway.
Right.
So that in itself, regardless of whether or not it's a household name, is incredibly impressive.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Carter Calvert. And this is another one that you might not know the name, but, she performed in a lot of different, Broadway productions. She voiceover work, so you might have heard her voice on some different things. Just a tremendous singer, great voice. She's when she tours around now, she does like a Patsy Cline tribute type show. She had the lead role in the Tony nominated theater productions, a number of those. But a singer in Kings Island's country shows, 1986-87. She was just 16 years old in this picture that you see right here. But she was so polished. You knew that she was going to go on to some really, really good things. She was just so super talented. She grew up in Cincinnati, attended the School for Creative and Performing Arts. But she's in, like I said, a lot of different musicals and just performing on Broadway. And, you definitely would know the voice if you heard her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, here's one that I've actually met.
Yeah. Alton Fitzgerald White. This guy is another, super good guy. Performed in a show called Gotta Dance at Kings Island. Is very quick to, again, like Louis Johnson, attribute a lot of his success to Kings Island. Went on to a career in Broadway. The Lion King. He had the longest run as Mustafa in the show's history. Was inducted into the Kings Island Hall of Fame in 2022. He's been on a number of different TV shows. He was in the Blacklist, Dexter, and he had appearances in that. So just a really, really successful career. Another guy that, hasn't forgotten where he came from. When he comes back to Cincinnati, oftentimes he'll visit Kings Island. Always make sure he gets Skyline Chili when he's in town, but just a great guy, phenomenal career, and just one of those people that, when you watch a show at Kings Island, you might not, think you're watching, anything but like, high school kids or early college, age kids. But a lot of them go on to do a lot of, things in the musical and Broadway. movie careers, things like that. And it's not just limited to the entertainment. You've got ride operators, people that worked in food and beverage, just a lot of other names that we could talk about. There was Lisa Akey was in shows. She's in television shows a lot in the 1990s, like Murder, She Wrote, and some other things. The John Larroquette Show had somebody that was a performer at Kings Island in the 1980s. So there's just a lot of very talented people, and they go on to do some great things. So you never know, you're watching a rising star. Anytime you're watching, some of the live entertainment and other things at Kings Island, or someone's checking your lap bar, you don't know. They're checking your lap bar today, and then in a couple years, they go on to become somebody famous.
It could be your boss one day.
Right.
Yeah, he sang the national anthem at the Kings Island 50th celebration, and I remember, you got to be talented to sing the national anthem first of all. But I remember him singing, and people were like, "Oh wow!"
Yeah,
So that was
when he was in Gotta Dance, another one of those individuals like Carter Calvert was, where there's something about them, that everyone in the show was really good. But there was just that polish, and just they stood out. You were drawn to watching these people just because of how talented they were.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so if you're watching this, leave a comment and let us know what is your favorite celebrity that has worked at Kings Island, or are there any celebrities that we missed that have worked at Kings Island?
Well, I'm sure we missed a lot that we couldn't get into this episode, but yeah, there's so many talented people that have worked at the park, and it was kind of the their training ground for what they went on to accomplish in their careers.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's move on to the listener question. So, I believe you got this one, Don.
The listener question is from, let me pull it up real quick here. It's from Josh Hall. And he says, Tower Topics, I would like to hear your thoughts on the third-party vendor the park is using at some of the food stands. I tried on Friday to get an icy at the booth near French Corner and the stand across from Bumper Cars. I was told the free icy was not in their system yet. So, Ryan, you have these third-party vendors around the park. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the one that runs the one by French Corner is Midwest Beverage, or maybe Midwest Food and Beverage. I'm not really sure. I actually had the same experience with the Drink Plan Plus, attempting to get a slushie there, and they said that their slushies were not included, and we're like, all right. And then I'm not sure, the one across from the Bumper Cars, I think is a Kings Island one. I think the only one I know about that's run by Midwest Beverage is the one next to French Corner.
Yeah, that's my thought too, is that's the one.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure about that. But so I might have mentioned this in I think our opening day retrospect, but we try to get ices there. They were turning away people left and right, saying you can get ices with your plan, just not here, which is like, I've Of course. But with that being said, you and I ran into somebody on Saturday and they had an orange slushie, and I said, "Where'd you get that?" And they said, "Oh, we got it from the place next to the French Corner." So I guess they either changed the policy, or they didn't tell us that they weren't in the system yet. They just told us that you couldn't get them there. So maybe they are in the system now. I'm not blaming anybody. I figured it would be first day stuff, but yeah, I'm cool with it, because that means the park doesn't have to staff it. The people are plenty polite,
Yeah, for me, it just comes down to, and it's a lot of things, it's just the communication has to be there. So if the park is offering something and it's supposed to be available at all these different locations, just making sure those third-party locations are aware of it. And sometimes, like you said, ones that aren't affiliated as a third party but are part of the park, sometimes they don't even know. So I think it just comes down to communication. I would chalk a lot of that up to being the opening weekend, and a lot of new different things are out there. The icy was a new thing this year with that different that elevated drink plan. So I just give it some time to let everybody know exactly what's going on, and I don't think you'll encounter those issues later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to give away another pack of these Kings Island Opening Day 2024 cards. For this one, I want you to tweet at us at Tower_Topics the word celebrity. Tweet celebrity to @tower_topics, and I will randomly draw somebody to get a pack of these cards. Cool. Hey. Oh, thanks for the listener question, by the way. I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.